The United States owed reparations to descendants of American slaves. The wealth of America was and is based on the economic exploitation of the descendants of American slaves. Black people on the street now because of police violence, white supremacist terrorism, and institutional racism are all in place as a means to ensure prosperity for white people and the subjugation of black people. The poverty that we face was systematically engineered and was not accidental. Thus, we, the descendants of American slaves, also known as foundational black Americans, require reparations across the board to correct these evils. In my speech, I'm going to talk about why foundational black Americans deserve reparations, who qualify, what reparation is defined as, and the black agenda. Here's a brief history of why foundational black Americans deserve reparations. Foundational black Americans are descendants of the black people who survived one of the greatest atrocities in recorded history, American slavery. Foundational black Americans are the descendants of the black people who built the United States from scratch. But contrary to popular belief, this history did not start in 1619. The history of foundational black Americans started almost 100 years earlier. The first documented foreign settlers in the New World of North America were enslaved black people who were brought over by Spanish colonizer Lucas Van de Ayllon in 1526. Shortly after, Ayllon and the 600 other Spaniards arrived to the area which will later become South Carolina, Georgia coast. The enslaved black captors launched a successful revolt, forcing the few remaining Spanish enslavers to ultimately flee from the area back towards the Caribbean. The liberated black people amalgamated into the local Native American society, and this will become a new historic chapter in which will ultimately become the culture of foundational black Americans. Since 1526, the culture of foundational black Americans have been that of building, resisting, persevering, and fighting for justice. The descendants of American slaves, also known as foundational black Americans, are the only ones who are eligible for reparations. A foundational black American is any person classified as black who can trace their blood lineage back to the system of American slavery. To be designated as a foundational black American, at least one parent must come from a non-immigrant background in the United States of America. Sources like the 1870 census and the 1900 census are both good verification resources to see if someone is a descendant of American slave. That was just a brief history lesson. Now back to the topic of reparations. Reparation is defined as a $20 trillion check to the descendants of American slave. While only the descendants of American slaves are eligible for reparations, steps to dismantle systematic white supremacy and stop white supremacist violence is a right of all melanated people of Aboriginal African descent. Reparations are not just financial. We require educational reparations to correct the crimes American schools have committed against black children. We require judicial reparations for past crimes such as the killing of Emmett Till and Trayvon Martin, who killers were allowed to walk free with impunity, as well as the ongoing crime of the white supremacist court system to continue de facto chattel slavery, which is a hallmark of the prison industrial complex. We require political reparations to address how a majority black area can be ruled over by confirmed white supremacist politicians. And with that, I go into my first point. My first point, the agenda must address black people and only black people. Any discussion of addressing black people needs must focus solely on black people. While it may seem obvious, the problem is the government and the media have embarked on a campaign to detour all efforts to focus on black people by diverting attention away from black people and putting it on trick words like people of color and minority, which they have twisted so much that minority can include white people, women, gays, white identifying Latinx people, and others. This strategy to deny black people resources, affirmative action is a perfect example of this. My second point, black society's top priority is economic empowerment. Virtually all of black Americans' ills can be traced directly back to a lack of economic resources, from education to healthcare to housing. The lack of money is the prime factor behind those issues. America has waged a never-ending war to prevent black people from having economic resources for the exploitative benefits of the rest of society. There needs to be a Marshall Plan for the descendants of American slaves, patterned after the Marshall Plan that was initiated in Japan after World War II. Public and private entities must all be incentivized to require to participate, as well as practically all of American public and private entities have benefited from keeping black people economically oppressed. 20% of public and private contracts should be reserved for black businesses. For several centuries, America has done business strictly along ethnic lines. It has embarked on a campaign of bombing black business districts like the very Black Wall Street as well as using racial regulations to target black businesses today for destruction. All of this is done to protect white businesses and preserve white economic privilege. To correct this, the public and private sector that have all profit off of economically disenfranchised black citizens should repay the debt by instituting a mandatory minimum 20% contract requirement with businesses that are black sole proprietorship or corporations that are 75% black owned. City contracts, municipal bonds, equity states in these private companies, tax credit or exemption from tax owed, land grants and set-asides, 0% financing as well as direct cash disbursements are all suitable methods of addressing these debts. The United States government was able to instantly allocate $10 trillion to deal with the COVID-19 outbreak of 2020. It didn't require a study, a commission, or a vote from the general population. It was done because it was deemed necessary. It is an insult to tell black people that all of a sudden all types of examination and delays are needed before we can be given what a virus was given without a thought. The United States owe a great debt to my people, a debt that must be and will be paid in full. The United States have committed a unforgivable genocide against my people. Reparation is the first of many steps to correct these wrongs. Thank you.